On August 22, 1987, in suburban neighborhood of Lower Plenty, Melbourne, it was around 4 a.m. on Saturday night. But on this unexpected night, an urban legend began to take shape as a masked man with only one dangerous intention in the family's home. After removing the window from the family's living room, he slipped inside, then proceeded to the parents' bedroom without making any noise. With the threat of violence, he wakes the parents, pretending to be a typical thief which only interested in their money. Ordering the parents to lie face down, he strongly tied their hands and feet together, effectively eliminating any chance they might have to escape. In a nearby room, the intruder awakes the family's 6-year-old son, blindfolded him, and tied to his bed. He then proceeded to the adjacent bedroom where the 11-year-old daughter slept. After brutally assaulting their daughter, the masked psychopath left the house, with taking a box of classic records and a blue jacket. On the next day, an Australian police received a call and quickly launched an investigation. But the crime appeared to be completely random, and the family had no known conflicts that could explain, which also didn't align with any other active cases in the area. When investigators turned their attention to the daughter, she revealed that during one of the breaks, he used the family's phone to make a threatening call, warning someone to prepare for his revenge. This given an important insight for investigation to track his footsteps and protect the next possible victims. But when the police checked the family's phone records, they were surprised to find no record of such call. On December 27, 1988, most families were enjoying the Christmas cheer. John Wills, his wife, and their 4 daughters were all asleep at home. Around 5 a.m. in the morning, John suddenly awake with a gun pressed against his head, followed by a voice, "Don't be a hero." John quickly understood that any kind of resistance could badly endanger his whole family's life. Just as in the previous incident, the parents were instructed to lie face down, blindfolded and gagged with the same surgical tape. Then the masked intruder proceeds with cutting the phone lines of the house. Once he was certain, he heads to the children's bedroom, where the family's 4 daughters at. Surprisingly calling the 10-year-old Sharon by name, he blindfolded, grabbed few of her clothing, and abducts her by the early morning. It took about 15 minutes for the parents to free themselves from the restraints, and they were hit with the devastating realization of their eldest daughter's abduction. Because of their destroyed phone lines, John hurried to the neighbor's house for phone call and frantically searched the neighborhood. For more than 18 hours, the family was in deep panic, fearing that their 10-year-old daughter might be killed for no reason. But, shortly after midnight, a woman came across a small figure standing on a street corner. It was 10-year-old Sharon Wills, wrapped in green garbage bags and abandoned on the street. The woman who discovered Sharon contacted the police and informed the Wills family. Despite the terrifying experience she had just gone through, she remarkably looks composed, with an unexpected calmness and resilience. Sharon had been blindfolded throughout the entire incident and couldn't provide a physical description of the abductor. However, she guessed him as a soft-spoken, blunt person who seemed surprisingly considerate toward his victims. This character was in full contrast to the severe nature of the crimes, and investigators made sure to note it. The term gentle was also particularly shocking to them. Just before releasing her, the abductor had carefully cleaned the 10-year-old, washing away any forensic evidence, also clipping her fingernails and brushing her teeth. He then wrapped in garbage bags and dropped her on the street of Baywater High School, located just a few miles from their home. As fear starting to spread, a nickname the Hampton Rapist began to emerge for his growing and dangerous character. In the weeks after the attack, the Wills family remained in constant fear. The parents and their 4 daughters stayed together in the same room for months, unable to sleep apart. Unfortunately, the investigation of the crime hit a dead end because very little evidence was discovered, which didn't help to identify the specific suspect. But later interviews revealed some crucial details. As the 10-year-old Sharon, she was certain on hearing low-flying aircraft during her brief captivity in his house. This information would have a significant impact on investigation. As the community speculated about his masked identity, another unsettling question also starts to emerge. Who would be the next victim? It nearly 2 years passed and still no sign of information about the case, and everything looks good in Canterbury, Victoria, a small town lies on the west of Ringwood and south of Lower Plenty. This suburb is a part of the extensive area surrounding Melbourne. The Linus family was rather well-off English citizens who had been renting a house along Monomeath Avenue, a street known for its numerous Australian politicians and public figures. On July 3, 1990, Brian and Rose attended a farewell party in their honor, leaving their two daughters at home for a few hours. Just before evening, 15-year-old Fiona and 13-year-old Nicola were jolted by sudden commands of the masked intruder. As he armed with both a gun and a knife, the teenagers left with no hope of fighting back or escape. After he restrained the older sister, he took the family's rental car from the driveway and drove about a kilometer before switching to a vehicle that he had prearranged for his getaway. 20 minutes after the abduction, the family arrived home to discover their empty driveway and wide-open front door. Their curiosity quickly turned to terror when they see their 15-year-old Fiona tied up on the bed with a small note beside. The note demanded that Brian must pay $25,000 to secure Nicole's safe return. The police uncovered almost no evidence at the crime scene, as the intruder had carried out the kidnapping in a quick and tactical manner. Unlike Sharon's abduction, Nicole wasn't returned that day. About 36 hours after she was taken, her father Brian held a press conference pleading with the kidnapper and expressing his willingness to meet the ransom demands by any means necessary. This led the investigators to see Brian's business deals, suspecting a possible connection to his work. At the time, the police believed that the demand might have had a personal motive. Fortunately for Nicole and her family, she was found alive approximately 50 hours after being abducted, just on her 14th birthday. Nicole was discovered near an electricity station in Kew, fully clothed and wrapped in a blanket, not far from their home. She was instructed to stay there until he had driven off. Once she realized that he's gone, she took off the blindfold and rushes to a nearby house for help and quickly called to her father. After her recovery, she provided crucial details for the investigation. One of the most significant pieces of information was her estimating the abductor's height, which she approximated to be about 1.7 meters. She guessed the number by comparing her own height during the time of moving her to the car, observing that he was only slightly taller than she was. Nicola also provided the detectives with crucial information that they hadn't yet obtained. Details of her abductor's house and vehicle, and the sketches she provided were also quite basic. Despite being blindfolded through most of her captivity, she had a few opportunities to catch glimpses of her surroundings, which is the time of direct contrast to the threats that made by Mr. Cruel. Similar to Sharon Will's experience, Nicole was bathed and cleaned before being released. During her captivity, she had also been restrained with a neck brace attached to the abductor's bed, which intensified the pain and anxiety that she felt. While she was blindfolded in a bedroom, she noticed that when he spoke out loud to someone else, investigators were uncertain whether this suggested the presence of an accomplice or if it was merely another one of his many misleading tactics. She also told investigators that she remembered hearing the same type of low-flying aircraft previously reported by Sharon. This suggested that the masked abductor could live in the vicinity of Tullamarine Airport, most likely in its direct flight path. Now, the investigators had the suspect's rough height, detailed sketches of his house and the interior of his car, and a good idea of where he lived. But through these terrifying and uncertain times, many parents were in big concerns of leaving their children at home. One of them was John and Phyllis Chon, that exceptionally dedicated parents, putting in nearly 18-hour workdays to provide a comfortable life for their three daughters. As immigrants to Australia, they owned 3 restaurants in the Eltham area of Victoria, along with several other property investments. On April 13, 1991, a Saturday was normally a very busy day for the Chon parents. Carmine and her 2 younger sisters were watching movies in their bedroom. Around 8:40 in the evening, Carmine and one of her sisters headed to the kitchen to prepare something to eat, at which the moment suddenly confronted by Mr. Cruel. He locked the 2 younger daughters into the closet, then abducted Carmine. Within minutes, the 2 younger sisters managed to escape from their confinement and quickly contacted their parents. When the police arrived, they found the words written in big, bold letters on Phyllis's parked car, which says, "Pay back, Asian drug dealer," or more and more to come. By following the path from a sliced window screen, police managed to trace the intruder's movements throughout the house. Desperate to bring their daughter home safely, John and Phyllis Chan held a press conference about 72 hours after the abduction. With tears in her face, her mother held up her daughter's outfit, which she had worn the night she was taken, and made an emotional plea for her return. A few days later, the Chan family tried another method, with placing an encrypted letter in the local newspaper using a code that only Carmine would understand. Carmine's sisters also penned letters that were published in the media, begging for their older sister's safe return. But days, weeks, and then months passed with no word on Carmine's safe return. Police spent months through investigating John Chan's personal and professional life for any criminal connections or business rivals. But the message written on his vehicle was just merely a tactic to throw authorities off track. Operation Spectrum, one of the most extensive manhunts in Australian history, is a multi-million-dollar effort that involved tens of thousands of man and countless hours contributed by volunteers. Almost a year after Carmine's abduction, on April 9, 1992, a man walking his dog near Edgar's Creek in Thomastown came across with something strange. As he bent down to take a closer look, he was shocked by what he found. The man hurried home to notify the authorities and soon guided the police back. It was a completely decomposed skeleton, which was later identified as Carmine Chan. Further investigations revealed that Carmine had been shot 3 times in the head, and the state of the remains suggested that she had likely been dead for nearly a year. Speculation about why Mr. Cruel murdered Carmine has persisted. But as the Carmine's mother insight, she is known for her strong-willed nature and resistance, and it's possible that she discovered the identity of her abductor and ultimately decides to pay the heavy price. Over the following years, the 40-member task force, with a budget exceeding $4 million, investigated more than 27,000 suspects, received over 10,000 public tips, and searched upwards of 30,000 homes in their relentless pursuit of a single clue. Sadly, the task force didn't able to succeed in identifying Mr. Cruel. As both of the survived victims noticing some hints of a camera on his bed, police arrested more than 70 individuals which had a connection to child pornography, fueling suspicions of his involvement in the child trafficking. Despite the extensive efforts of Operation Spectrum, the Victoria Police Force faced allegations of corruption in the early 1990s, which compromised the investigation and led to numerous accusations of cover-ups. Over time, various theories have surfaced regarding Mr. Cruel's identity, and one prominent theory suggests that he likely had connections to the Victorian school system. This idea is further supported by the details that both Nicola Linus and Carmine Chan were students at the same school. It is likely that he targets children in the most twisted way, which could probably be spending his working hours in close proximity. Till this day, the case of Mr. Cruel remained open and continues to be one of Australia's unsolved mystery. Thank you for watching. Smash that subscribe and see you on the next one.